Hello everyone, I'm Darshana. So in this video I thought of talking about another I would say a concern I had after viewing video in Rumble. So I think some of you may be familiar with Rumble, which is it's kind of an alternative to YouTube where there's not much censorship. So unlike in YouTube, so this particular video I came across, and I thought that particular video, it's basically an interview with a person called Professor Dolores Cahill. So she is apparently a professor in medicine at she is still a professor there. She is a professor at the School of Medicine at University College Dublin, and she has, a pretty good, strong research profile and a profile in the government. She has worked as an advisor at the EU and Irish government for many years. So, pretty accomplished person, and her specialty is in immunology and molecular biology. So I think she's as an individual, I would say I think you should be a qualified person to talk about this. So she raised some issues regarding the COVID-19 vaccines, both the mRNA vaccines, the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine, as well as the Oxford vaccine, which is a DNA vaccine, right? So I didn't. So my understanding is very limited in this area of biotechnology. So whatever I say here is based on what she said. I will try to leave a link to what she said in the description box. So I would suggest that if you can look at that will be more. That will be more clear, I guess. But I will try to I'll try to explain what she tried to say, right? So this is that particular interview, and I would leave a link to that in the description. And Professor Dolores is kind of a politically active person as well. So I have to say that she is actually. I found some videos of her talking about I don't know how to pronounce it, Irexit or something. So basically, she is the chairperson or chairman of Irish Freedom Party, which is a political party that is its main goal is to leave EU, right? So just like UKIP, which was founded by Nigel Farage, so like a single issue party, it seems. And I will leave a link to one of her speeches as well. She's making a pretty, I think, pretty solid argument on why Ireland should leave EU. Apparently, I didn't know that Ireland also apparently had a referendum where initially they voted to leave EU, and there was another referendum. I think maybe the result was reversed, but anyway, because I think my thought of Ireland was that Irish people wanted to stay in the EU, but maybe that's not the case. So she's the main argument there. I'm just going off in a tangent now. The argument there was that in order for democracy to be preserved, you just need nation state, because otherwise some bureaucrats who are appointed, not elected by the people, who are unaccountable, will make rules for you, like all these super structures like UN. They have some unelected bureaucrats from countries that we are not familiar with, and they are just making decisions that affect the people of countries maybe they have never visited, right? So I think that's a pretty convincing argument for the nation state. So leaving that aside, so we'll come back to the original topic, that is this thing called antibody dependent enhancement. ADE, whether these current COVID vaccines will will have that risk of antibody dependent enhancement. Right? So the basic idea behind this, so this has been known to the scientists, particularly with SARS coronavirus vaccine, and she's citing this particular paper in PLOS ONE. PLOS ONE is it's open access journal, but it's pretty. I think it has a pretty high regard, and this particular paper was published in 2012, and it talks about the SARS virus, which is, I think, a close cousin of this COVID SARS-CoV-2 virus, which is the virus that is affecting us today. And in this particular experiment, they had apparently had a mouse model where they injected 4 different vaccines to mice, and one of them was a recombinant DNA produced S protein, right? It's something similar to the Oxford vaccine, I think, because the Oxford vaccine is also a DNA vaccine. So, which is combined with this, what do you call this, spike protein. So, but there were some other vaccines as well. Now, and what they did was they went a step further, and they did what you call a challenge trial. So, because they were mice, not humans, they could do that, and they would inject or they would infect the live virus to the mice afterwards, right? So, and something interesting happened, and apparently, the mice who were vaccinated actually demonstrated more severe symptoms, and some of them died, right? So that's kind of counterintuitive, right? Because what you would expect is those who were immunized would be protected, right? And the death rate and the symptoms would be less, right? The conclusion is that, so I mean, you can go through the paper. I mean, I don't understand all of it, but the crux of it is that COVID or SARS-CoV vaccines. So these to the, not for CoV-2, all induce antibody and protection against infection with SARS-CoV. However, challenge of mice. So this so-called challenge trial, right? Challenge of mice given any of the vaccines led to occurrence of Th2 type immunopathology. I don't understand what that is. So some kind of immune system related disorder, I think, suggesting hypersensitivity to SARS-CoV components was induced. Caution in proceeding to application of SARS-CoV vaccine in humans is indicated, right? So this is further reinforced by some similar study that where I think these some children who were vaccinated, I don't know how they managed to get the ethical approval for this. Some children who were vaccinated, so for this purpose, the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases supported preparation of vaccines for evaluation for potential use in humans. This effort was hampered by the occurrence in the initial preclinical trial of an immunopathogenic type lung disease among ferrets and cynomolgus monkeys. Given a whole virus vaccine adjuvanted with LM and challenged with infectious SARS-CoV, that lung disease exhibited the characteristics of Th2 type immunopathology with I can't read that, and in the lung section suggesting hypersensitivity that was reminiscent of the descriptions of the Th2 type immunopathologic reaction in young children given an inactivated RSV vaccine and subsequently infected with naturally occurring RSV. So this is a different vaccine, RSV, something called RSV vaccine. Most of the children experienced severe disease with infection that led to high frequency of hospitalizations. 2 children died with infection, right? So this phenomena has been known to scientists. I think ADE, antibody dependent enhancement. So sometimes the the prevalence of antibodies can make the immune system hyperactive, and when you encounter, once you vaccinate one, so those antibodies are active, and once you encounter the live virus, what they call the wild virus, the immune system would be hyperactive, and there will be, so the immune system will kind of they should cause it a cytokine storm. And now Professor Dolores says that this is quite possible with COVID-19. And again, this is another paper that is more in line of the ethical side of it, right? Informed consent disclosure of vaccine trial subjects of risk of COVID-19 vaccines worsening clinical disease, right? So this is, they have done a literature review, and the conclusion is pretty clear. The conclusion is the specific and significant COVID-19 risk of ADE should have been and should be prominently and independently disclosed to research subjects currently in vaccine trials, as well as those being recruited for the trials and future patients after vaccine approval, in order to meet the medical ethics standard of patient comprehension for informed consent, right? So they are saying that this was published quite recently, October 2020, right? That this should be, part of that information should be given to the subjects who are receiving this vaccine, both the test subjects as well as the actual patients, right? No actual humans, which is a pretty strong claim to make, but I don't think that's discussed in the mainstream media or anything. Now her explanation why this happened is that I think, so this, I found this nice diagram on the BBC website. So the Oxford vaccine, apparently it is a kind of a virus that is found in monkeys, which normally does not infect humans. So that has been kind of genetically modified with the spike protein, or part of the COVID-19 virus that is injected to humans. And so virus enters the cells and then causes the cells to produce. So the whole idea in both Oxford vaccine as well as in Pfizer and Moderna vaccines is that they want the cell to produce this spike protein that is similar to the one that is found in the COVID-19 virus, right? So it's kind of different. As I understand, it's quite different from the traditional vaccines. The traditional vaccines, you would give a sort of weakened form of the same virus, and you with the hope that the body will produce antibodies, right? So here it's kind of a roundabout way to alter the cellular structure to produce a protein that is similar to that of the virus, the COVID-19 virus, right? And then with the hope that these the immune system will develop antibodies for that. Now what Professor Dolores says is that now these, since the now when after this happens, once you encounter the wild virus, so then the immune system will notice, okay, there's a viral infection, and it will try to react, and at the same time it will look at these spike proteins in the actual cells, like all over the body, in all the organs, and that will create some kind of some cytokine storm, or reminiscent of a autoimmune disorder, that the body will, your immune system will start attacking the body itself, and that can cause some catastrophic damage within a very short period of time. So I think, as a layperson, I don't know much about this domain. As a layperson, I think that kind of it looks like a good hypothesis. At least we have some empirical data from mouse models with SARS-CoV vaccines. not these ones, but for the previous virus, which is very similar to, I think, the SARS-CoV-2. So I think it's definitely something that should be tested for. Now I'm not sure whether animal trials were, or these animal models were done, and whether challenge trials were done for SARS-CoV vaccines. I tried to find literature on that, but I couldn't find any literature on that. I think that would be, so if you could do that for SARS-CoV, I think it should be fairly straightforward for SARS-CoV-2 as well, vaccines, which I think, doing animal trials, challenge trials is questionable from ethical standpoint, but since now we are giving this to humans, even now it may not be too late, right? So maybe there's a technical reason why it cannot be done, but I don't know. But if it's possible to do, I think that's, at least in Sri Lanka, I think we can try to do that, and we can make sure that this is not the case, because what you want is, everyone wants vaccination to work, because people want to get back to the normal scenario, whatever that is. But some people are worried about the side effects. Now when you say side effects, some people are worried about the side effects, right? But when you say side effects, most people think that it's just, I guess, fever and some swelling, which is a temporary thing, right? And that's okay for most people. But something like this is something that can affect, if it is true, or if it is the case, it can affect you in long term. So what she says is, you can get infected, you can get vaccinated, but down the line, maybe 2-3 months down the line, you might encounter the wild virus, and then only this will happen, right? So that is something that even a trial might not catch, because the trials that were there, I don't think they were running for that long, and definitely human trials may not have been challenge trials, right? Because that's very unethical. What they tested was basically the prevalence of the symptoms, and they did PCR tests. So they didn't do challenge trials for humans, definitely. But for animals, maybe they have done that, maybe they haven't published it. But I think that is, if that has not been done, it's very, given this knowledge, it's strange to say the least, and it should be done. Right? So if it hasn't been done. The other thing is, so she's actually, she's making a very controversial claim in that video. Now that kind of videos are banned on YouTube, right? You can't upload those videos on YouTube, because the idea is that people might panic, and that might affect the vaccination process. I can see the logic behind that, but that it's at the same time, the downside of that is it kind of suppresses alternative ideas, right? Because, and you just end up with one single narrative, which is kind of risky. I think ideally what you want in science or in anything, you need healthy arguments, and people should be able to defend their arguments, right, rather than censoring. And that's the only way that we can arrive at more, I guess, productive or more better outcomes, I guess. Right? So actually, what she says is that now there's another empirical way to test whether this actually happens. So it's kind of a controversial thought. So what she says is, eventually, so she's actually pretty sure that this will happen. Eventually, if people die from this kind of reaction, and so what she's arguing for is for postmortems, right? For forensic postmortems, where so if someone gets vaccinated and then dies from an ADE reaction, once they catch the wild virus. That will be remarkably different, according to her, from a normal progression of the disease, because the inflammation of the lungs will be very uniform, and so on. So she gives some kind of bioindicators where someone like her, someone who's knowledgeable in this area, could test whether this is actually occurring. But that will only happen maybe 2-3 months down the line, right? So, but that's kind of a troubling thought. But at least even by that time, if it happens, and if you can validate empirically that it happens, then at least we can mitigate the damage, right? We can do more studies on this, because as Donald Trump said, the cure can't be worse than the disease. So you want to ensure that. Of course, I understand the logic behind giving emergency approval and hurrying through the trials and all that. But at the same time, these vaccines, the mRNA vaccines, so this is the first time that mRNA vaccines have been approved in the UK or the US. It's the first time that DNA vaccines like Oxford-AstraZeneca vaccine, which is a DNA vaccine, has been approved in the US, right? So it's a pretty novel technology, and the only thing that is common, I mean, even though it's called vaccine, it's quite different, as I understand, quite different from the traditional vaccines that we are used to. So, so I think we can't be too careful when it comes to this. That's basically what I wanted to talk about today, and this actually has been suggested in mainstream literature. So in Nature Microbiology, which I think is a fairly, high-ranking journal, which was published in 2020 September. So Antibody Dependent Enhancement and SARS-CoV-2 vaccine and therapies. Right? Again, it's more like a review paper, and it has so these diagrams and all that. They have evaluated this ADE phenomena in other viruses, right? Dengue and some of the vaccines in vaccine trials. So the conclusion again, ADE has been observed in SARS, MERS, and other human respiratory virus infection, including RSV and measles, right, which suggests a real risk of ADE for SARS-CoV-2 vaccines and antibody-based interventions, right? Right. So yeah, some technical stuff are there, but the risk is there. So I guess it's fairly, if the animal models are feasible, that would be the easiest thing to do, I guess, to do a challenge trial. Or the other option would be to really validate it, to wait and see, and to do, if unfortunately if something like that happens, at least in some of the recipients, maybe can do autopsies and see what has happened now. But even that would be questionable, because I think in most countries you don't do postmortems if you are diagnosed, if the diseased person was diagnosed with COVID, right? So she's demanding that autopsies should be conducted, at least from now on, just to make sure that these vaccines do not cause ADE, and which might eventually lead to higher level of mortality. Right? So that's basically what I want to talk about today, and I thought it's a relevant topic, and I will leave the links to the papers that I referred, and Professor Dolores's interview in the description. So do share your thoughts and comments, and see you again with a similar video. Thank you.